Hi, today we're going to talk about functions in Python. What are functions? Functions are a group of statements which are put together so that they can run more than once. Functions are organized and reusable, and they are used to perform a single or related task. They are also called as reusable code, and they provide modularity for programming. Now, code maintenance becomes extremely easy or very easy because functions reduce the errors that are there in programs, and they ultimately reduce the length of programs. Now, the difference between a function and a method will be more clear when we get into object-oriented programming. But for this class, we will just understand that a method is nothing but a function that is used within a class or that is called by an object. Then we need to know that functions have got their own names. Now, when we are defining a function in Python, we use the keyword def, def, followed by the function name and then a parenthesis. Any input parameters that are going to be used must be placed inside the parenthesis, and the first statement of a function is always optional, and it is called as the documentation string or the doc string of the function. The code block within every function starts with a colon, and then it is indented. Then lastly, the statement return exits a function. So the keyword here is return exits a function, optionally passing back an expression to the caller. Now, let's have a look at this syntax and see what it expresses. This syntax defines a function name and parameters, and let me call it the body of the function. Def tells the compiler that we are going to define a function. Then that is followed by a function name, and this function name would also be preceded by parentheses, and this parenthesis would allow us to pass parameters into it, and then once we have closed the parenthesis, there's a full colon, and then we go to the function docstring, and then function suit, and then the return expression. So the function docstring, it's like a commenting section whereby you have to talk about the various places that you're going, the various issues that are going to happen in your function. You can just give some explanation, and then the function suit, majorly or ideally, it's like the body or the content of your function, and then the return statement would finally help you exit your function, returning the control to some other function and even returning results to the required place. An example is given on the right hand side, whereby we have a function by the name add, having two parameters a and b, then after the parentheses are closed, we have a full colon stating that the function is beginning there. Now the very first statement that we see here, this function sums numbers provided in argument is nothing but docstring, and this docstring is supposed to have 3 quotation marks at the beginning and 3 quotation marks at the end, and then what follows thereafter is actually how the parameters are going to be added and stored in a variable named c. Print c would definitely print the value that has been stored in C, then return would help us exit the function. Now, functions cannot run on their own. They must always be called. Now, when we are calling a function, we must use its name. So while a function is being called, we have to pass values associated with the parameters that are defined in the parentheses. In this case, we have an example of add 5 plus 12. I would expect this function to have 2 parameters. Now, returning results from a function. Now, this is accomplished by using the return statements within the function body. When the function is not returning any result, then we need not write the return statement in the body of the function. Unlike other programming languages like C, C++, Java, whose functions return a single value, in Python, a function can return multiple values. Now that's very interesting. It means that the return keyword is very important because it can return a single or multiple values from the body of a function. Now, the final thing we're going to talk about today is anonymous functions or Lambda. Now, sometimes we may not want to have a very long or lengthy function that can be summarized and just be expressed in a single line. Now we can again do away with the keyword def and then use lambda, and then it's going to be our function which is summarized. So lambda is another way of creating functions which are anonymous. Now, why do we call them anonymous? Because sometimes we might not necessarily want to state what the function is going to do, or we might want just to come up with a good way of going about something, and then it's not necessarily required for us to use the keyword def. So not declared in the standard way using the def keyword. Instead, they use lambda keyword to create all anonymous functions. Now, lambdas take any number of arguments but return one value in form of an expression. Then lambdas cannot contain commands or multiple expressions. Then we have anonymous functions cannot be a direct call to print. And then finally, they have their own local namespace and cannot access variables other than those in their parameter list and those in the global space. These are anonymous functions, and in our next lecture we are going to look at them in details. But in this lecture we want to really understand what are functions, and based on this syntax and example, we're going to straight away go and create and run these functions. If you have your Anaconda, you can just straight away go to your Jupyter notebook, but in our class we are going to use Python 2.7. Excuse me. Go to Start menu. Python 2.7. Then go to the IDE. So the first program is about adding two numbers. This is the program about function. Let me just end this PowerPoint presentation, and then let me just make sure that our Python compiler is running. Right, thank you. Python is just right here. It's our Python 2.7, 0.18, and we want to at least make or write some few programs to create functions. What I would do here, I just go to my file menu, then I click on new file, then right here I will type def. Now let's say we want to create a function to add numbers, so we can call that one add underscore numbers as a function, so whichever name, and then right inside here we can pass two parameters. You can just say param a1 and then param 2, like that. And then when we come here, and then we have what? We have a column. Then once we click, we press enter, we have now the function body. Right here we can have 3 beginning quotes. This is a doc string. You can just type something here. This program going to add 2 numbers. Once you have that, you can now start your program here. Then you can just write return param1 plus parameter or param2, and that's all. Now if you save this as add.py, you have already saved it as add.py, and then you are going to run the program to see if it's working or if it has some errors. Right, now apparently there are no errors, so what we are going to do here is to call the name of the function. Now I forgot the name of the function. Let me just come here and see. Okay, let me just keep it that side, and I keep this one this side for, so add numbers function, add numbers func, and then wow, so I need to pass 1 parameter here and 2 parameter here. In this case I can just add numbers 2, 5, like that, and then I can press enter. Alright, so our function by the name add numbers func is able to add to numbers. So what we are seeing here is that we are able to accept 2 parameters, and then on the other side these parameters are added and then they're returned, and we can print them here. You could do this program in a different way. For example, we could come up here with our program here and say C is equals to param1, param2, and then you would go ahead right here, then you say print C. Now this is the normal way in which we should do things, and then you can now just type here return. Now once we save this work for us, we need to run and see if it has got any errors. Okay, apparently there are no errors right here. Then we will now need to call the function. What you type here on the console is the function name. Add numbers bank, and then we can pass, let's say 5, or the second number is 7. There we go, and then we will get the number coming to 12. So this is the long way of doing it. Now we said that Python enables us to shorten the code, and that's why we were going about this problem by writing a very minimal code that will do the same thing. Now if I come to this code and okay, let me change here and maybe say this is add 2, then what the function is add 2 maybe, and then I come just right here, I save. So what happens is this: if I come right here, if I run, okay, so if I come here, I say add 2. Once I put the opening bracket, we see that the parameters are here, so it means that the function is already saved and recognized by the compiler. So if I pass 4 my first parameter, and let's say 4 against my other parameter, now I have an 8. So it is working well. So this is a program to add 2 numbers. Actually, it is a function that adds 2 number. Let me write another function program to just maybe say hi or hello. Now come here to new file, now def, and then you can say greeting, and then you can say name, or you can just say greeting like that, and then colon. So the function name is greeting, then you can say printer hello, something like that. Let's see, this one is okay. You can say greetings.py. There we go. Now let's see if it is running well. Okay, it's running well, nothing wrong with it. Now what you do as always, come and write the name of the function on your terminal. Now greetings, all right, like that. So it was an empty function. We didn't have any parameters in there, that's why it has not called or written param1 or param2 as the previous program. Now we see here that we are getting actually hello on this other end. So this function would always print hello or whatever is writing here. Now let's do another program. Let's have another program, maybe a program to do what? A program to find a square. square of a number. Now, the square of a number, let's say if it's 10 squared, it's 100. If it's 2 squared, it's 4. If it's 3 squared, it is what? It is 9. So a program to find the square of a number can be written as this. So we can give it a name. So def, and then we can say s square. So we want to square x. So what can happen now is that what we are going to return is x multiplied by the x again. That's all. Now, if we save this, then say square.py Python, and then I come here and run this program to check the errors. There are no errors on this other side. If there are no errors on this other side, I will just, let me keep it that way, or this way, this way. I'll come to the console here, terminal, and type the what? The name of the function. Now, in this case, x has not been defined. We can just pass some numbers there. Let's say it's 4 and see if it's going to work. Right, it comes to 16, so it is working perfectly. So the function that we have written here, square, is going to return the multiplication of the element past 3. Actually, ideally the square of the element, the number multiplied by itself. Now let's have another program to do calculate or to perform some arithmetic calculation. So we'll come here, we'll get a new file, and then we would, as usual, define our function. So our function is going to be called calc, and this calc is going to have 2 parameters, and these 2 parameters are going to be used to help us come up with something like a calculator. Now, it's a very simple calculator. Now, we can have program to perform arithmetic calculations. 23. That's enough for the doc string. And then now we can go the long way. C is equals to A plus B, and then D is equals to A minus B, and then you see the E is equals to A multiplied by B. So what is going to happen is that we're going to return C, D, and E. Now let's save our work. Let's save our work. It's right here. It's going to be saved as calc.py. Now you come to here and you press run module. Now the module, it's running, and if you don't see anything right here, then that means there are no errors. So what is going to happen? You are going to call the function name right on the console, and then once you do that, when you see these 2 parameters pop up, you're supposed to pass in some information. So let me say it's 2, or let me say 3, 2. Alright, so this is actually what happens. So if we add the two numbers, 3 plus 2, we get 5. If we subtract the two numbers, we get 1. If we multiply the two numbers, we get 6. Now that is a function that is able to perform some basic arithmetic calculations. And then finally, let me just do a program that is going to test which numbers is large among 3 numbers. Now that's the last final function program that we're going to do for this lecture. As always, you go to the new file and then you would now use def, and then let's get its name. We can give it this name, max value, and then we have a comma b comma c. Then once we have that, we can have a full colon there. Then we can say that now the maximum is equals to a. The first statement. Now if now b is greater than maximum, this is a condition. Always you must close it with a colon. Then you can say maximum is equal to b. If c is greater than maximum, then maximum is equal to c. Now, final thing is to return maximum. Right. Our small program is over maximum value. So let's save it as maxval.py. Now maxpy.file is saved. Let's run it and see if there are any errors. Alright, no errors on this other side. So what happens? We come to the console and type maxval. Make sure you take care of the caps. Now what pops up tells us that we have 3 parameters to pass. So we can say 3 is the first parameter, 5 is the second parameter, and then 8 is the last parameter. Once we have that, then we click enter. Now what is maximum? 8 would come there. Let's try again with another number. We have 6, 1, and then any other number, 9, or we can say 2 this here, and then once we do that, now 6 is the maximum number. That is a simplified way of writing a program to find the maximum among 3 numbers. Now this lecture has just showed us what functions are and how to write functions and how to run functions. And it's very important for us to understand that in Python, functions are very important. And today, henceforth, we'll get deep and deep into how we can do functions. Now, our next class, we'll be talking about anonymous function lambdas. Otherwise, for this lesson, thank you.